time, you know, no, I think I was pretty happy with everything. With Creepshow 2, I mean, now if I looked at it and go, God, I wish we could do it, I'd probably say, let's just redo the whole movie.
Back then, it was still a proving ground for us. We were kids, literally. So we were kind of making this stuff up as we went along. I'd always grown up watching horror movies and science fiction movies. You know, my dad is a retired physician. He was a big gadget guy. So we had the first video recorder that you could get. And the first two movies that I remember us recording was The Time Machine and Horror of Dracula. And I watched them over and over and over again. Those movies really just inspired my imagination. And I loved seeing films and being scared and trying to figure out how they did it.
And that seems to be the big thing, like in my generation at least, is that we grew up on monster movies, loved all sorts of films, loved all the classics, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. I first got interested doing makeup effects when I was really young. I mean, I think that I want to make monsters when I grow up. And I started, you know, I was creative. I could sculpt and paint and draw. You know, I was really influenced by Rick Baker and really influenced by Stan Winston and Dick Smith, who I was a huge fan of.
And, you know, I ended up getting interested in art and drawing. And, you know, I remember watching Planet of the Apes, getting clay and trying to sculpt a little Planet of the Apes muzzle on a whatever head form I had.
I grew up here in L.A., the San Fernando Valley. After I'd gotten out of high school, I worked for Stan Winston on Predator and Aliens and Pumpkinhead and Monster Squad, a bunch of different stuff. And eventually got to work at Rick Baker's on Harry and the Hendersons in the mid-'80s. And it was really a dream come true.
I grew up in Pittsburgh, and it's a very small film community there. If you have any interest in movies or special effects or horror, you will find yourself in the company of people like George Romero and Tom Savini. When I went to visit Creepshow set is when I met Tom. And at that point, when Tom and I got to be friends, then I subsequently got hired on Day of the Dead.
I was lucky enough to get hired in the mid-'80s on Day of the Dead, which was this George Romero zombie movie. And it was my first location job. I was 18 years old. And at that time, I had a roommate named Everett Burrell. So we packed up our stuff, got rid of the apartment, zipped out to Pittsburgh. First person we meet off the plane, Greg Nicotero.
So it was really just complete fate that we met on Day of the Dead.
George?
Yeah.
It's okay. Left some on the edge of the...
And that turned out to be one of my best experiences ever.
That was really my first introduction to spending time on a movie set and getting an idea of how things work.
I mean, that was like my going away to college. Here I was on this movie. I wasn't making anything. I think we were all making like $300 a week. And that was really like frat party because there's all these guys. And we were working on the zombie movie and laughing. And Savini was the ringleader. He was the John Belushi of the pack.
I had run Tom's department for him on Day of the Dead. And the producer, Richard Rubenstein, was very impressed with how I was able to keep track of the number of prosthetics and makeup times for zombies, and how we could get 40 people done, 50 people done, and never be late and always be organized. So when Creepshow 2 came about, they wanted to assemble a lot of the same people that had worked on Day of the Dead as the effects crew. Michael Gornick was the director of photography on Day of the Dead. He was now directing. We were shooting Evil Dead 2 in North Carolina when Michael Gornick called and said, listen, we got a green light on Creepshow 2.
We need you guys to come in, and we need you to work on Creepshow 2. We have another effects guy. His name's Ed French.
Ed had done Tales from the Dark Side in New York, so they knew Ed. They were very comfortable with Ed. We want you to do for Ed what you did for Tom. You know, manage the department, keep your eye on what's going on, make sure that our deadlines are looking good. What's your schedule? And I said, well, I have about 3 or 4 more weeks of shooting on Evil Dead 2. Our schedule was winding down here.
So Greg and I flew to New York, and we had meetings and figured it out.
And as soon as I got there was a little bit of tension.
What had happened is one producer asked us to come in and supervise Ed, but Ed was never told that we were there to supervise Ed. So Greg and I would be very forceful in how we wanted things done, and then Ed would, you know, as he should, not knowing what the situation was, be very forceful back. And it became a very huge struggle, especially a struggle between Greg and Ed.
He looked at me walk in, and he's like, well, what exactly is your job? And I said, well, I was hired by the line producer to just make sure that everything is done to their satisfaction. Well, Ed didn't really like that very much, and understandably so. I mean, you don't want to ever think there's somebody that's kind of looking over your shoulder.
So we prepped and prepped and prepped and prepped, working in Ed's little teeny space in Brooklyn, upstairs above a market, which smelled like fish. There were 3 segments. So we broke it down into the water blobby thing, which we let Ed deal with, the Indian sequence, which Mike Tersick dealt with, and then I handled all the stuff for the hitchhiker sequence.
And I got myself into a lot of trouble because I remember talking to Michael Gornick, and Michael said, how's everything going there? I said, it's hard for me to say. I'm not quite sure how we're going to utilize some of this stuff. I'm not quite sure how these things are going to play. That set off a whole series of alarm bells. And the next thing I know, I was called a spy and was banned from the workshop. Then we packed everything up and we shipped it all to Arizona, right outside of Prescott. The plan was we'd shoot 2 segments there, and then we would go to Bangor, Maine, and shoot the hitchhiker segment. They transformed an old Texaco station into our workshop,
which we renamed the Effectsico.
And we had all of our props and all of our monsters and all of our things there.
It was myself, Everett Burrell, Mike Tersick, Ed French, and Greg Nicotero. And we have a short period of time to prep. I don't know how the heck we did it. Then came time to shoot the Wooden Indian stuff.
That just happens to be the subject of our first nauseating novella, Old Chief Woodenhead.
Oh, it's dust all over your war paint, Chief. I should have learned by now never to paint you on a dry day.
Yatta hey, Chief Woodenhead.
We knew that we had to create 2 things for Chief Woodenhead. We needed to create a full statue of him that would be used as a prop, and then we had to produce a suit. But we could only do 1 sculpture.
Mike Tersick was in charge of Chief Woodenhead. He sculpted that whole suit.
He sculpted the whole Indian thing with the exception of the head. Ed French sculpted the head, but Mike sculpted the entire body and everything. We brought this actor, this guy named Dan, and we basically did a full body cast of him, produced a fiberglass positive, and Mike Tersick sculpted the entire body. It was beautiful. Then we found these 2 Italian guys, artisans from the old country, and they produced fiberglass molds of all this stuff, feet, hands, everything we needed. Then we had to produce the prop piece. Mike and I laid in liquid latex and burlap. That was the skin, and then we blew foam into it, and then armature wire, and so we could position the statue and all that stuff. The statue was painted with acrylic paints. Mike hand-painted it because we wanted to get that very worn, distressed look. We had to make a mechanical mask. The head was all radio-controlled, so because all I had to do was blink.
It had just, real subtle eye movement.
Right now, too.
And then the mouth. The movements were very subtle. I think that's all it did.
A corner, Chief Woodenhead.
We made that entire suit out of polyfoam and SC89 skin. And the suit was painted with urethane paints. And we dusted him down so when he'd move, there'd be some dust coming off. Dan, who was in the suit, was really, really great. He was a mime, and he knew how to emote out of the suit. When you're wearing suits, you have to overcompensate for your movements. because it's almost like half the movement outside the costume. And he did a really great job being this wooden Indian.
The Chief Woodenhead sequence. In that, there's not a tremendous number of gags. There's the heavyset guy holding the beer can. I remember we made a fake hand with a piston with the arrowhead on it so that he hit his arm and then on cue the arrowhead popped out. I think the Chief Woodenhead sequence, the effects are flawless.
No. Hey, you're not alive, man. You can't be alive.
I mean, I think the performer in the suit was great. I think the sculpture that Mike Tersick did was phenomenal.
It was just a really cool character. And that Indian was really great.
And then we had the raft segment.
Still here, kiddies? Well, if old Chief Woodenhead didn't drive you away, you might enjoy this next splintering tale. This bubbly bonbon is titled The Raft.
I was actually not on set for Chief Woodenhead very much because I was in the shop working on the other stuff. And they said, well, you're going to make the blobs. And I said, oh, I am? Well, what are they supposed to, I mean, has anyone designed them? Do we know what they're supposed to look like? You go back to the original source material where it was this nebulous, vague description of this black oil slick that lived in a lake. This amorphous thing that you never really knew what it was. You just saw it as something floating in the water.
Come on.
So there was really never any understanding of what the creature was.
It's an oil slick. Have you ever seen a perfectly round oil slick before?
There were no conceptual drawings.
Under Ed's supervision, we built what he felt needed to happen for the film.
We literally brushed latex on the floor of a big garage, and then I poured bits of polyfoam and foam in a spiral pattern and then embedded junk like soda cans and Bob's Big Boy pieces and all this stuff into it. And then Ed's job, who was sort of like art director, special effects, was to build the rigs that pulled the blob through the lake. So we start testing things, and all of a sudden, things weren't really working out as everybody had imagined.
I just remember Mike Gornick, who was the director, walking over to us and going, guys, what are we going to do to fix this? And Ed walked up and said, well, Michael, and Michael said, I don't want to hear from you. Howard, how are we going to fix this? And I went, in order to fix this is what we have to do.
And the next thing you know, Ed French is off the movie and flying back to New York, and Howard became the new boss. They gave him co-makeup effects credit.
But it should have been myself and Greg Nicotero, because Greg and I did the same amount of work, I felt.
And they turn to us and they say, okay, guys, we have to figure out what we're going to do.
And we finished it.
We're going to work now.
We built everything literally in a weekend. Everett Burrell, Mike Tersick, Greg, and myself, we rebuilt everything in a weekend. We didn't stop. And we were shooting Monday, and it worked out great. The big thing was that garbage bag monster.
And we did a couple different shapes, too. We did a round one, and then we did one that was sort of shaped like a comet
these big weird looking shapes and forms, and ran a bunch of them in foam rubber and latex. And we ended up handing it over to like special effects and props, which was fine with us. They had it on a big PVC sort of floating device, and they would move it around, divers underneath and so forth.
The temperature of the lake was ice cold, freezing cold.
I hate water. I just hated being out there, but I did it. I just put it out of my mind. I'm on a soundstage. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Out there working in the water and stuff. Ugh. We were shooting 6-day weeks. So, I mean, it was tough.
And, you know, by then it was October in Arizona, and it started getting cold.
And here we are at the annual Monopoly game.
I remember days when it just poured rain, and we sat in Paige Hannah's trailer playing Monopoly for hours and hours at a time because there was literally nothing to do.
Look at this money. This is how much over budget Creepshow 2 it is. Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk about, oh, well, you know, we're over schedule and we're over budget, and what are we going to do?
Hi, Michael.
Mike was under a lot of pressure. Not a lot of people had Mike's back. He really looked towards Greg and myself as a comfort and as an ally.
He would come to me and say, you know, I don't really feel like I have very many allies in this movie, but I know that you're one of them.
And anytime a situation came up, he came to us. It's like, Howard, I need you to just deal with it. I know it's not your department. Can you figure out how to do it? Yeah, absolutely. We can do it this way, this way, this way. It's done. Don't worry about it. We'll make it happen. Don't worry about anything. He's just a really great guy.
My experiences with Michael Gornick were nothing but great, and I think that he did a really good job with the cards that he was dealt.
It looked like it was going after the girls.
We were responsible for creating what the creature could do to somebody. One of the toughest gags for the actors was when Paige Hannah gets attacked. She's swirling her finger in the water, and it leaps up her arm.
Get away from there, Rachel, die!
And we did a lot of reverse stuff where we had air mortars filled with black methicil and ultra slime.
Ultra slime has like this resin that makes it real sinewy. And it looks cool, but it's virtually impossible to get off. Like you have to use bleach and scrub because there's just something that bonds to everything, and you're just like, it drives you crazy.
So we would fill an air mortar, and it would shoot this big black booger snot thing at you. And we had hot melt vinyl gloves that a puppeteer would wear that would shoot out of the water and grab onto somebody. She's reaching up, and you can see the webbing of the ultra slime. So then she gets pulled into the water. As soon as she's in the water, Patty Tallman doubled her. That shot where she's kind of cloaked in the black stuff and it's oozing, that's the stunt double, Patty Tallman, covered in slime. And poor Patty, you know, I mean, the slime was everywhere. It was not a good experience. We started experimenting with taking the raft, putting it up on blocks, and then building troughs filled with black methicil. And that way we were able to squeeze the troughs underneath the raft, and the black stuff would ooze up and then ooze back down, and then ooze up and ooze back down. So we were making gallon after gallon after gallon of black methicil and gallon after gallon after gallon of black ultra slime. We were in the shop dicking around with that stuff and when Howard and Mike were on set.
I was running out of slime, and I remember I was like, oh, man, we're out of it. I called Greg up. Greg, get in the rent-a-car, bring me 10 gallons of ultra slime.
We need 10 gallons of black slime right away. It's imperative.
So Greg put 2 giant buckets of ultra slime, black ultra slime, in the back of the car, zoomed off.
And I'm driving down the road at 50 miles an hour, and I make a turn,
and the lids weren't on.
And I hear this weird sound, and then I look down, and this wave of black slime comes up underneath my feet.
Looks down, and his feet are submerged in slime.
My feet were sliding off of the brake and off the gas because it was slime. So both 5-gallon buckets spilled.
He pulls up. He's like, Howard, I'm here. I'm like, thank God. He's like, no, the buckets fell over. The car's filled. I'm like, oh, shit.
There was black slime everywhere. There was 4 inches of black tinted ultra slime and methicil in the car.
So Greg and I pull the buckets out, and we're laughing our asses off, and we're just slomping this crap back in, the whole inside of the car covered in ultra slime.
I had to go to production and say, I think I ruined one of the production vehicles. We had only done a couple movies at this point, so we were kind of making this stuff up as we went along. I was sculpting appliances, Howard was sculpting appliances, Everett was sculpting appliances. Everett made a cast of Zeke's leg. With his big rubber leg. When he gets attacked by the blob and the leg goes up. And then he gets pulled straight down. For the shot where Jeremy Green gets engulfed by the blob, we literally tilted the raft sideways.
So we had the raft up like this.
And we were pumping the black sludge over her head. So she turns, and as she looks at camera, the illusion is that the stuff has come up over her face.
And we did this thing where the tentacles like go up into her face and all that stuff. We sculpted appliances that we put on the Jeremy. We put goo tubes in, and we put all these hot melt vinyl tentacles into her face, just weaved them in and out.
Then we took a skeleton and we laid that on a piece of latex and we poured polyfoam over that. And you see the skeleton moving in the water. It looks like the people are being dissolved by the monster.
But the big thing was at the end when the one kid comes up on the lake and on the shore.
We built a PVC frame that was like a tripwire frame. And we just attached a big giant square section of the blob to it so that when you tripped it, the whole thing would flip up.
It was literally like a convertible top.
So we wet it down and covered it with slime.
I beat you!
And it looks like it's coming over camera.
Obviously, if we were to do that today, that thing would have been digital 100% and have a lot of fluidity to it and, you know, a lot of different things. But at the time, you know, everything was very low tech because we didn't have the time and no money whatsoever. I'm sure people will watch this and go, boy, that looks just like a garbage bag. But at the time, it worked out fine. You know, people were like, ooh, that's kind of cool. After we wrapped on the raft, we moved to Maine, did the Creep episode that opens the movie. And originally, Ed French was cast to play it. When he left the project, obviously the Creep was wide open. So they said, how about Tom Savini?
I think that Tom was flattered to be asked to play the part. And the makeup that Everett designed is great.
And Everett Burrell basically designed it based on the artwork that was done by Bernie Wrightson. It was all big makeup.
Howard, you did a great job on the hands, man.
There were hand appliances. And then we bald capped them. There was a back of the head piece. There was a neck, forehead, nose, cheeks, chin, and upper lip. And we glued all that down, and Everett pre-painted it and all. It was really beautiful. We applied it once. It was a 6-hour makeup. We started at midnight. It was ready at 6 in the morning.
And, you know, the one thing about Tom is he's so theatrical. He really knows how to bring a makeup to life. I mean, it's really about performance, and Tom really brought that character to life.
I never seen anyone so impatient, Billy. As if your life depended on getting the first copy off the presses.
I mean, it would have been nice to see more of him in the movie, because you only see him briefly.
Tom was wonderful, and that makeup went really, really great, and we were really happy. And then we moved on to the hitchhiker sequence.
I think we've got time for one more creepy concoction, our last morbid masterpiece, which I call the hitchhiker.
The hitchhiker was the last segment we shot, so we flew to Bangor. I mean, part of the reason we shot there was because, of course, it's King's hometown. They had promised Steve that we would shoot some of it in his town. Howard was really responsible for the design of the hitchhiker makeups.
How you doing, lady? Thanks.
for the ride.
I think I designed like 6 stages of makeup on Tom Wright. This actor, I life cast him, and then made 6 busts of him, and then sculpted all the makeups. It took me, I don't know, between an hour to 2 hours to do Tom's makeups every day. And sometimes there'd be switches midday. And he was great. He was really amenable. I mean, I had to put contact lenses in his eyes, which were these big giant sclerals which cover your entire eye. They were all yellow and hemorrhaged and crazy.
Oh, man. That was some rough crack. Ooh, I don't want to see no more of that shit. No more. Hey, how my eyes look? I can go to work, Ray. God damn. I'm blind. I'm blind.
And, right out of the gate, Tom Wright and I hit it off. I just love the guy.
You look fucking disgusting, man. Get that tongue out of my face.
That was actually the first time I had done a makeup on an African-American actor. And it's really hard.
All right, and this is Larry Berg.
They have a tremendous amount of red in their skin, and it was difficult to finally figure out how much red I had to put into that makeup to match Tom's skin tone, but yet over-red it. Foam is a very dense material, and when light hits it, it doesn't look realistic, like flesh. It just absorbs the light and stops there, and it can be really gray. So it was interesting to find the right colors to use. I think we did it in sequence. And, it started off subtle, like cracked forehead. And then got bigger, bigger, bigger until we got to all these different appliances.
He gets, bashed so many times at the car. By the time you see him later, it could have been a piece of hamburger. That sequence wasn't really a lot of gags. It was all makeup stuff. I was responsible for building all the dummies that she runs over, which she runs over 50 times.
I got you! I got you!
So we made a fully jointed dummy that actually had stops on it so it wouldn't bend both ways. That was really what I was most responsible for.
The worst part of it was all nights.
All shot in the middle of the night, just torturous. Really, really crazy. Weather was a problem because it was snowing.
It was bloody freezing. Having to deal with blood and your hands were freezing up.
Well, welcome to my makeup room. Yay!
We'd come in the mornings and my makeup trailer was frozen. The water wasn't running. Toilet was frozen over, materials frozen over. It was like an ice cave.
And then it stopped snowing and it melted and then it was snowing again. So the exteriors never matched, never did what they were supposed to do.
At the end where Lois Chiles jumps in the car and she thinks she's getting away and he pops up. Thanks for the ride, ladies. That was Puppet Head. We called it the Admiral Akbar head from Star Wars.
Oh, prepare for the attack.
Because it was like this big splayed open head and oh, blah.
He's got this big tongue, mechanical tongue hanging out.
And the eyes were moving around. It was basically a cable operated puppet. I think the facial movements were radio controlled. I think I had my hand up its ass or whatever. And then I had a hand here being his hand. Like the Muppets. Thanks, lady, for the ride.
How about a ride, lady?
It was fun. And it was a good way to end the show. But boy, we could hardly wait. Greg and I had been on the road for 12 months at that time. And we were just like, we want to go home. We want to go home. I think we wrapped in November, right at Thanksgiving. Finished up and flew home and took it easy.
I really enjoyed working on the movie and working with Mike and Howard. We were kids, literally, and we didn't know that much. It was such a roller coaster when we were doing it. Back then, it was still a proving ground for us.
I look fondly back at the movie for a number of reasons. I met my wife on the show. She was second AD, assistant director. We've been together ever since. And that was really awesome. And I think because it was the first time that I got to really supervise a film,
When Howard was afforded a co-makeup effects supervisor credit, that really began to lay the groundwork for K&B. Howard, I got to be friends. And then by the time I moved out to LA, it was like, let's just start our own thing. What do you think?
So we did it, and we were super successful, amazingly successful. Greg and I have been best friends for 20 years, like brothers. We have a really strong relationship. And you know, granted, there's times we don't get along. There's been a lot of times we've been really upset with each other and had screaming fights. And then, of course, it ends with a punch in the arm, like, sorry, me too, I love you, man. I love you too, Greg. Sorry. And then everything's fine.
What's significant about Creepshow, one was it fulfilled my desire to get away from gore and create some monsters and characters, you know. Nate's corpse, Fluffy, the first animatronic creature I've ever done. You know, that's what that fulfilled. And I mean, there was gore, of course, in Creepshow. But I got to get away from the gore and do some character stuff, some creatures and monsters, you know. All of a sudden, Ed French is doing Creepshow too, and Greg Nicotero and Mike Tersick, you know, and they asked me to do to play the creep, you know, knowing how much I love to wear makeup, you know. In fact, as soon as we were done, I insisted that there was a shower there on location and not wait for a ride in the van an hour back. I didn't want to be sticky for another hour. So I did a shower and they removed the makeup right then and there because I hate wearing this stuff, as you know. But I also got to do the bullet hits on Tom Wright, the hitchhiker. I did the head hits on him. They cast my head. In fact, my daughter Leah was a year old. Not more than that, and I made sure that we shaved my facial hair in front of her so she would still know who I am after the face cast. Yeah, so they did I think they did my face cast in Arizona, I'm not quite sure. They went to Arizona for warm weather. It was freezing. They were in that lake freezing. That big garbage bag that was the blob, they had to, Tasso, my friend Tasso, and my wife, Nancy, trained, got certified as scuba divers to control the underwater movement of the blob, you know. And it was freezing. You know, it was a breakdown makeup, the nose, the chin, the headpiece, it was all separate, you know. And I think I had goofy hands and fingers, you know, yeah. But I turned into a cartoon character. You know, you see me in the back of the truck, and then as soon as I leap, it's Rick Catazone's animated creep coming down. The only other shot I did, the ending of the movie, was standing in the back of that delivery truck and throwing out. Now, was it Bundles? No, Bundles was when we were stopped dead. But as I drove away, 3 miles down the highway, I was throwing out the Creepshow magazine, yeah. And we did it over and over again. And we had to keep driving until we were like, you know, little cartoon figures and, you know, on the horizon.
I've never seen anyone so impatient, Billy, as if your life depended on getting the first copy off the presses.
I had to lip sync a recorded track, you know, and it had to be exactly what I was hearing, you know, and then acting what I was trying to, you know, lip sync to. So that was kind of tough, you know, and you know, I forgot that I'm suffering because it's constantly sticky. That makeup is, you know, every time you move, you can feel the stickiness of it, which is why I wanted it removed instantly, you know. But yeah, that was tough. And Gornick, he just did like a couple of takes, I remember, because I got the lip sync. You know, I was listening to it in the hotel and stuff, you know, so I got it down pretty packed, yeah. Mike Gornick as a director was something that I was used to, because on the sets with George, I mean, Mike wasn't directing, but Mike, if the shot wasn't right, Mike would come in and say, you know, did this, or Tom, could you know, he was like directing the composition. George was directing the movie, but Mike was directing the composition. So I was used to hearing Mike tell me what to do and then doing it. So it was no different on Creepshow too, you know. I like Mike, we get along terrific. I love his voice, he's got this great deep voice. And he knew exactly what he wanted, you know, and I think he got it. Creepshow 2 was, New World Pictures picked it up. And coincidentally, I wound up getting a 3-picture deal with New World before they kind of went belly up. I could turn down 2, but I would have to do the third. And the third one was Graveyard Shift, Stephen King's Graveyard Shift. When you make a contract, make sure it's pay or play. Pay or play, which means if it doesn't happen, they still have to pay you. And that's what happened. I was out for the premiere of Night of the Living Dead in LA, and I realized my contract with New World stated that I could do other projects, but it would add the time that it took to do that project to my 1-year contract. So at the premiere of Night of the Living Dead at the Chinese theater, I realized, whoa, 18 months have gone by. They need to pay me. And I went to the office, it was Frank Capra Jr. I thought, well, this is going to be the first day of litigation, of trying to get my money. Wrote me a check. Paid me for directing a whole movie that I never directed. Pay or play. Pay or play. Some of my fondest memories of Creepshow 2, of course, hanging out with Everett and Greg and Howard and Mike Tursick, you know. And I was interested in the effects, of course. I'm in effects mode, you know. The Blob bothered me. I never bought the Blob. But the Wooden Indian, that was Mike Tursick's thing. That just blew me away. One day I got there and the Indian was standing there, and all of a sudden he started moving.
Y tus trailers, visita mi canal.
That was one of the highlights, the Wooden Indian, you know. Story-wise, you know, I'm not, you know, I came from Creepshow 1, so, you know, it just wasn't Creepshow 1, but, you know, I enjoyed it. Did I ever hear anybody say, oh, I enjoyed you in Creepshow 2? I don't think they knew it was me, you know, under all that makeup. I used to have photos that I, you know, had sold at conventions of me as the creep. It was Creepshow 2, my friends were working on it, you know. Hey, do you want to play this part? Oh, and they paid me a lot of money. Yeah, yeah.
It's in focus. Right, focus?
You got it.
Hi, kids. Did you memorize your lines?
I never seen anyone so impatient.
Great music, too.
Okay. I'll give him a big kiss for him.
Is that Nance?
Okay.
Hand me that Panzer's ink.
Look at this great monster.
What is that thing? Stop motion.
Energy doesn't go free. It goes up there.
I've never seen anyone so impatient.
Wait, Mike, what's the cue? Okay, I'll give you a visual cue. Ask the curtain opens. Ready? And action!
Never seen anyone so...
Cut it right there. Action. Curtain!
I've never seen anyone so impatient, Billy. As if your life depended on getting the first copy off the presses.
Okay, cut it.
I've never seen anyone so impatient, Billy. As if your life depended first copy of the presses.
Bidding! 270, take one, common marker. Marker. Action! Cut!
I never seen anyone so impatient, Billy.
Y tus trailers, visita mi canal.
On getting the first copy of the presses.
And cut it. Nice one. Action. Cut!
I never seen anyone so impatient, Billy. As if your life depended on getting the first copy of the presses.
And cut it.
Cut! I never seen anyone so impatient, Billy. As if your life depended on getting the first copy of the presses.
And action. Ready, hit down. Curtain! Cut it, please. Curtain!
I've never seen anyone so impatient,